We have an attacker tier list. First of all, we're going to go over Ace just to get a bit of a balancing metric here. Ace is a great operator, right? You can play Ace every single round and it be perfectly fine and you'll get value out of Ace. That's what operators in the great category are for, right? Operators in the OP category are operators that I think probably need to get nerfed, and I don't think Ace needs to be nerfed, so I'm going to stick him in great. I also don't think Ace is that situational because there isn't a single bomb site in the entire game where Ace wouldn't be useful. Yes, even on Coastline. He's not necessarily good because he brings a lot of value when he's brought every single round. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he needs to be reworked either. So now that you understand how the tier list works and we've already put an operator on it, let's move on to the next operator, which is going to be Amaru. Amaru probably just needs to get reworked. Like, she does have situational uses, but even though she does have situational uses, her ability still is just not a good ability. Because it's just clunky. It's a 50-50 shot whether it works, right? And you never want an operator in a video game where it's a 50-50 shot whether they work. So, that, I just don't want to put her in anything higher, to be real. Next, let's go over Ashe. I think Ashe is great. Her guns are great. She's probably one of the best entry fraggers in the game because she has those great guns on a 3-speed, and she's able to counter a lot of bulletproof utility, like Melusi, who's pretty good right now. You can also counter Mira, who's, you know, always going to be good. So Ashe is just always going to be a good operator. Next up is Blackbeard. Blackbeard needs a rework. I think Osa should have been a Blackbeard rework. Most content creators have been saying that for a while, including myself. So until they rework Blackbeard next season, not Year 9 Season 3, but Year 9 Season 4, like they said, I'm going to stick him in the rework section for every single one of my tier lists. Somebody who I don't think needs to be reworked, but I do think needs to be nerfed a little bit is Blitz. And I think that goes for literally any shield operator. Maybe not Blitz. I think Blitz is pretty good. But Monty definitely is a bit too OP right now. As somebody who plays Monty literally almost every single stream and every single ranked game, even competitively I play Monty, I'm a soft support. In comp, you're not supposed to be getting the kills if you're a soft support. You're supposed to be droning in your entries. But just because I play Monty, I end up top fragging a lot of the times. So it's not even that I'm like playing aggressive, he's just uncounterable. If someone swings and they take that gunfight with your teammate, then you ADS and you take the gunfight. And either way, that person's dead whether he kills you or he kills your teammate, right? They can't really melee you if you have your shield extended. Even if they do, sometimes it just doesn't fucking work. You can run at them with your shield in front of your face. You can throw smokes from behind your shield. There's just no risk involved with playing Monty anymore, which is why he's so overpowered. Next, I think Brava deserves to be situational. Brava you're only going to bring if there's utility for you to counter. If they're running Doc, Rook, Vigil, Bandit, and like a Jaeger, you're not really going to get any value out of Brava except for maybe the Jaeger and the Bandit, right? But even then, you could just bring flash grenades or EMPs and do that job, but better. Which is why I think she's pretty situationally dependent on the utility that is brought. I also can say the same exact thing for Flores and Twitch for that matter. They're pretty dependent on the utility. I think Twitch is honestly less dependent on utility than these two operators are, purely because of the fact that you can get default cameras from an infinite amount of range away with Twitch, and her guns are so good, and she brings smoke grenades. But you could arguably say the same thing about Brava too, right? She has good guns and smoke grenades, but I don't think that's enough to put an operator any higher than situational, so I think I'm going to stick Twitch and situational for now. Next up, let's go over Capitao. Capitao I also think is pretty situational because you're only going to bring him on very specific bomb sites, like let's say Rafters on Clubhouse to clear the Izami out, or you're going to bring him on top floor border to clear the kid out of half wall. That's pretty much it. There's other niche scenarios, but you're never really going to bring a Capitao unless you're doing a quick plant, and even then you could bring Grim, and Grim be a little bit better in my opinion. Speaking of Grim, let's go ahead and rank Grim. I think Grim is great. And if this was like a competitive Pro League tier list, I'd put Grim probably in OP because they use Grim almost every single round that Grim is available, and he's banned a lot too. But this is, you know, a solo queue ranked tier list. I think Grim is still pretty great though. If you learn how to play Grim correctly, which is actually a little bit harder than most people think, you can make Grim pretty effective. The whole point of Grim is to not get information on people. The whole point of Grim is to get people's exact locations that you already have info on. For example, the reason people like to use Grim on like Rafters of Clubhouse is because you already know there's a guy at Rafters, right? You're not playing Grim to see if someone's there. You're playing Grim to get that exact location on him so that your teammates can go for an execute onto Rafters. So that your teammate who's on the wall that's open, your teammate who's on the door, and you below Rafters can all pinch the kid at one time and get exact pings on him. That is how Grim is meant to be used. You use him in executes to get exact pings so you can kill people or go for a plant, right? And if you know how to do that correctly and you're calming with your teammates, Grim can be very, very, very hard to deal with and very powerful as well. Somebody who I think is the exact same way would be Deimos. Now, when I was talking about Deimos when he first came out, I honestly didn't think Deimos was that good. I put Deimos in the good category. Some people even put him in the bad. Some people put him in OP. I think where Deimos deserves to be right now is probably great alongside with Grim. It seems to be, at least from my viewing and playing experience, that the better you are as a team, the better Deimos is going to be. The 1v1 potential that Deimos has is pretty good, and I think purely based off of that, he also brings a shotgun, grenades. I think purely based off of that kit alone, at minimum, he deserves to be in good. But if you put him in a team setting where you can kind of execute off of it with a Lion, with a Dokkaebi, with a Jackal, or with plants with a Grim, like I said earlier, I think you can make an argument for situational being his highest category. There are some sites where Deimos just absolutely sucks. Let's take like Basement of Oregon, for example. You can't play Vert on that site at all, right? And because there's barely any angles that are like crossfires on that site, it's a really defender-sided site, it's going to be hard for Deimos to get really any value. So I think he's pretty map dependent, but I don't want to put him any lower because I do think Deimos is actually a pretty good operator right now. Chat, what do we think of the tier list so far? I'm not talking to chat because it's a YouTube video, but what do y'all think? Let me know. What do y'all think about the tier list? Yap, yap, yap. Let's go Big Daddy D and great. Alright, yeah. Never gonna read chat again. Alright. Now, that's enough about talking about good operators. I want to talk about some operators that I think are actually a bit bad. The tier list, thank you. The first of which being Fuse. Now, as much as bad console players love to argue the fact that Fuse is situationally good, I don't even think that's true. I think, honestly, you can probably just stick Fuse in bad. Fuse is good for the fact that he has an AK, and he has, like, kind of a good ability, but if you get into, like, plat and above, all people have to do is shoot your Fuse charges, and you get absolutely zero value out of Fuse. So that's why Fuse is not really good unless you're in low elo. If you're in low elo, you could put Fuse in great, sure, but I'm making a tier list for the average population, and the average population is, like, a gold and above, so I don't think Fuse is going to be that good for most players. I'll put him in good, purely for the fact that, like, he does bring an AK, and he brings hard breaching charges if you want to get hatches, and the utility is kind of good if you want to at least distract people. I don't think he deserves to be in bad with other people, but I don't think I can, in my good conscience, put Fuse any higher, to be honest. Type 7 if you're edging. My YouTube chat is fucking tweaking right now. Somebody who I think I can put in that exact same tier would probably be Striker. Striker is not bad, honestly. Like, you could use Striker in some pretty good niche scenarios, but other than that, I don't see Striker being that good unless he's the only, or she's the only operator that you have, or you're solo queuing and your teammates aren't bringing hard breach or EMPs and you have to bring both, right? In that scenario, I think Striker can actually be pretty good, and Striker has good weapons too, which is why I'm putting Striker in good. Somebody who I definitely want to put in bad, though, would be Sens. I don't think Sens needs to be reworked like a lot of people think. I think Sens just needs to have less counters. You shouldn't be able to explode Sens' wall of smoke. I think that's fucking stupid. Everybody literally just brings impacts. Literally everybody brings impact, so it makes sense really bad. I also think that it needs to be shown where exactly the line's going to deploy, right? So that just, you could buff Sens. That's pretty much it. I think anybody that is in bad just needs a buff, really. You don't need to rework them. I can't really think of anybody else that would be in that tier. Next up is Dokkaebi. Now, as you know, Dokkaebi is getting changed with the new season rollout, and even with that, I still think Dokkaebi is OP. I think the fact that you can't double call and immediately roam clear is nice, but that didn't make Dokkaebi strong. What makes Dokkaebi strong is the fact that you can hack phones and get access to all defender cameras, and when you call, none of the defenders can get on those cameras. So that's double information denial in one operator. She also brings EMPs to get walls open, or smokes to get a plant down, or flashes to get kills. It's just too versatile of an operator. You have to either take away the fact that calling kicks dead people off of cameras, which is fucking stupid, or take away her EMPs and smokes and give her like claymores and flashes, right? And then I think she'd be balanced. Honestly, I think she would. The 45-second call duration is a step in the right direction, but I still think she's going to be pretty OP in this upcoming season as somebody who has played in the test server. Next, let's go over the remaining hard breaches other than Ace, which is going to be Hibana, Thermite, and for that matter, we're also going to put Maverick and Thatcher in this tier. They're situational. You're not going to want to bring Hibana every round because there's sometimes where Ace is going to be better or Thermite's going to be better. You're not going to want to bring Thermite every round because there's sometimes, like the Basement of Bank, where you're going to want a Hibana instead. Sometimes Maverick is really good if they're bringing Turbo and Cade and you don't have Thatcher on the board, so you want to get the wall open without having to worry about like someone bandit tricking or Cade tricking. So Maverick can be good in those scenarios, or if you just want to sneak in through, like, let's say Dirt and Clubhouse, And then Thatcher situationally good as well if he's unbanned and you don't need to bring EMP grenades because you have Flank Watcher and Gridlock, right? So all of these operators, purely situational. Now, I'm not saying that these operators are worse than people in Great, right? Situational people are not like, I want to say worse or better than anyone. They're just situational, so you can kind of think of this tier as off to like the side of its own. But I want to go over an operator that I think is a lot less situational than people realize, and that is going to be Lion. I think Lion is great, and you can play Lion every single round. He's one of the easiest operators to pick up, and even when he's easy, you can still get a good high skill ceiling gadget out of Lion if you know how to execute with him properly. And just overall, he's a really, really good operator. You can combo him with operators like Deimos, so if they move, they get Lion tracked. If they don't move, they get pre-fired by Deimos, and it's just a lose-lose scenario for them, right? And you can pair him up with a lot of other different operators, which is why I think Lion's a really, really good operator. Pro X a professional for a YouTube video that he does on stream. I don't know, man. You should go check out my last YouTube video. That was the most unprofessional YouTube video I think I've ever made. Why is Sen's not an OP? I'm not gonna give him a 2-minute timeout. That's insane. That's crazy. That's an insane thing to say. Next up, let's go over Yana. I think Yana is good. I just really, really wish that Yana had flashes, because I get they're trying to make Yana a flex operator. They're not trying to make Yana an entry fragger. But I think in terms of how her gadget works, it just makes sense for her to be an entry fragger instead. And because she's not, it just feels a little slow and clunky to play this operator now that she's not an entry fragger. And nobody really finds themselves using her anymore. Like, sure, she's a good operator, which is why I'm putting her in the good tier list. But I don't think she's anything beyond that, to be completely honest with you. The same exact thing, in my opinion, can be said for Finka. I think Finka is a good operator, a good entry fragger, but I think Ash, I think Grim, I think Dokkaebi, Jackal, Knock after the rework are just going to be better in most scenarios. You can bring a Finka, you have an LMG with an ACOG with flash grenades, which is really nice, not even to mention the adrenal surges, right? But you can do all of that on my next operator, which is literally Buck. Buck brings a good gun with a good scope with flash grenades, and the ability is arguably better. So anytime that you'd want to bring a Finka, just bring Buck instead and you'll be on an even better page, right? I don't think Buck is OP, doesn't need to be nerfed, but Buck is definitely one of the best solo queue operators in the entire game, hands down. You can play as a flex and play vert, you can play as an entry fragger and make yourself rotate, you have flash grenades to even help that playstyle, you have a great DMR, a great AR, great 8 cogs, you have a Gon, or no, you don't have a Gon 6 anymore. Wow, I actually almost just said he had a Gon 6. Anyways, you get the idea. Great operator. Her gadget is loud as fuck, easy to tell it's her drone. Oh, you mean Yana? Yeah, for sure. Next up is IQ. IQ is situational. You're only going to play IQ if they have a Valkyrie or an Echo on the board, or a Pulse. That's pretty much it. If you want to counter Solus and Vigil, maybe, but even then just bring like a Jackal or a Dokkaebi. Speaking of, let's go over Jackal. Jackal you could put in great. I don't think Jackal's OP. I think people gas the fuck out of Jackal, especially in lower ranks. Jackal does not need to be nerfed. Jackal is really good, especially compared to Dokkaebi. Jackal does not need to be nerfed. He's great. I will admit, Jackal is a great operator. He's great for roam clearing, especially on larger maps where you really need to be able to cover a lot of ground quickly. He has good guns. He has smoke grenades, a secondary shotgun. One of the best roam clearers in the entire game, and a great operator at that. Next up, let's go over Glaz. I think Glaz is bad. And for that matter, I think Kali is pretty bad. Now, I normally would put these two operators in the rework section because I talk about how I wish that their gadgets would stay the same, but they'd swap guns due to the natural playstyle of the operator. But I don't think that's ever going to happen, so I'm just going to stick them in bad. They're not really good operators. I have so many low-ranked players come into my comment section whenever I tell them that Kali's bad, because they're like, well, Kali can get walls open. Yeah, but so can anybody with EMPs and a better ability and a gun that's easier to use. Like, Kali is really not that good. Kali also destroys your hard breach charge that's on the wall with her utility, which is fucking stupid. That is so dumb. That, like, why would they ever implement that in the game? If they didn't do that, Kali would be so much better, in my opinion. So much better. Anyways, let's move on to an operator that I think is a lot better, which would be Gridlock. I think Gridlock's great. You can play Gridlock every single round and have the best flank watch in the entire game. EMPs, a secondary shotgun, a great AR, or smoke grenades for the plant, right? Just an all-around versatile powerhouse of an operator. Next up is Nomad. I've been saying this for seasons now. I think Nomad is probably the most overrated attacker in all of Rainbow Six Siege. The only thing that Nomad is good for is runouts. You can't use her for flanks because people will just shoot or impact your air jabs every single time. Right? Every single time. They can easily just shoot your air jabs on any staircase, any doorway. Anyone in the entire game, they can easily be shot if you know how to just crouch walk up to an air jab and shoot it, right? But she is good for runouts. If you put it at the top of the window or the door when they're running out, they can't run out, and that is great. I do like Nomad for runouts, but that's very map dependent, which is why I want to stick Nomad in situational. It's only dependent on if you know they're running out and playing aggressive, and if there's a map where runouts are even important, like Cafe, for example, right? That's pretty much it. Next up is Ram. I think Ram is situational, because you're never gonna really use her utility unless you're doing a site that has vert above it, right? So for like second floor sites, CC cash on Clubhouse, Ram is pretty useless. Now you might be saying, she has an R4C and a good ability. Yeah, but like so does Ashe, right? So like why would you bring Ram over her? Ram's also a 3 armor, which kind of sucks, right? So pretty situational in my opinion. If you want to disagree with me, you're probably just a fragger who thrived in the 1.5 meta. Sorry. Next up, let's go over Sledge. I think Sledge is good. Can't really put Sledge anywhere higher. The fact that he can't cook his frag grenades anymore, and he's a 3 armor, which makes playing vert super hard against nitro cells, just makes you want to put Sledge in good. Is Sledge a good operator? Yes, that's why I put him in good. Is he any better? Not really. Let me move all these recruits out of the way really quickly. Next is Ying. Dude, like, as much as people don't want to admit that Ying is good, I want to put Ying in OP. I really do. Ying is so good. Ying is so good. Most people that like comment after I put Ying in OP are like, but you can just play Warden. Most of the time, Wardens forget that they have an ability. Most of the time, Wardens are off-site. Most of the time, Warden is dead by the time you want to do a plant execute because they're fraggers, right? So it really does not fucking matter. And honestly, the Warden is just 1 out of 5 teammates on the board, right? So it's a 20% chance that the one person you're flashing in the round is going to be a Warden. And all you have to do is listen for the Warden activating his goggles. Then just don't peek your smokes. And even then, you can see through your flashes. And if the Warden can see too, it's just a fair gunfight, right? It's not like he counters you. He has just as much of a chance as winning as you do. So Warden doesn't counter Ying. And for the fact of the matter is, nobody really does, except for like Jaeger and Wamai, right? But I will say, these operators here don't have counters. And Ying does. So I think it would only be fair for me to put Ying in great and not in OP. And I think if they nerf Ying, I'd be a little upset and she'd be a little underpowered. So I can't really in my heart put her in OP. You know what I mean? I think I have to put her in great for the sake of the tier list. Anyways, let's go over Zero. I think Zero was a good operator. You can make an argument for great, especially the lower that you go in the ELO tier list, but it's kind of the same deal as Fuse, where in higher lobbies, they're just going to shoot your Zero cameras. And Zero's primary function, if you want to be a good Zero player, is to watch flank cams. But if you're solo queuing in a ranked environment, your teammates are not going to watch your flank cams, which means you, if no one is dead, are going to be stuck watching flank the entire time. And if you don't want to do that, just play Gridlock and you'll have a much better time. I will say the gun is amazing, and the fact that you bring hard reaching charges just allows you to do so much because you can zap like Cade Claws and Bandit charges off, right? So Zero is a pretty versatile operator, but just because you're using a bunch of utility doesn't mean that it's all that impactful, if that makes sense. And I do still think that Zero is a good operator, but I don't think Zero competes with people like Ying or Jackal or Ace, right? So I just don't think he competes with operators like that, unfortunately. Still a good operator in my opinion, but just not like top tier, you know what I mean? I think everybody's gonna agree with that. Now, we're in the final 4 operators of the video. Let's go over, oh wait, no, we only have 3. I can't count. We're in the final 3 operators of the video. Let's first go over Zofia. I think Zofia is good. There's nothing really about Zofia compared to the operators above her in great, where it's like, oh, I need to bring Zofia because of this, right? You kind of just bring Zofia because everybody else is taken, if that makes sense, if you're even bringing Zofia. She kind of is just what other operators are, but worse. Like, Ram is pretty much just a better version of Zofia. Ashe is a better version of Zofia. All of these operators are just better than Zofia, right? So, I mean, kind of just think she deserves to be in good. Let's go over Osa. I think Osa you can put in situational. Osa's hard to rank, because, like, you could bring in Osa every round, but do you want to? Not really. Not really. There's some sites where it's pretty hard to play Osa. Like Basement of Oregon, she's pretty good, because you can play her in Tunnel. But Top Floor Oregon, she sucks, because you can't play her anywhere and it be all that impactful, right? Speaking of impactful, people can just bring impact grenades and completely counter her. So I don't think she deserves to be in like OP or great, but she definitely has her situational uses for sure. Deimos should be great. So I actually went over that. I think overall Deimos is a great operator, but there are certain sites where Deimos kind of sucks. Like Bottom Floor Oregon, there's no vert on that site, and you really can't punish people on Deimos because all they have to do is go back to site. So he's pretty like site dependent in my opinion. Now finally, let's go over the last operator, which is going to be Nook. With the Nook rework, I think she went from being in the bad category to being in the great category. I think the fact that you can sit under cams for an infinite amount of time with a buffed recoil SMG is outstanding. The entire playstyle and purpose of Nook is to be a patient attacker that only goes in when it's the perfect time, and her only being able to sit under default cameras for 5 seconds before her utility depleted was just completely negating that entire playstyle, and it was why she was so bad. And I think now that you can sit for as long as you want to and watch flanked or wait for the perfect opportunity to strike, I think it's going to get patient players that like playing the game slowly an operator that just feels natural for them to play. And she's going to be really powerful. The fact that you can sit under a camera and nobody know you're there is crazy. There's also a common misconception that when you activate your ability, there's lines that move on your screen. That is only for Vigil. That is not the case with Nook at all, even when you're moving around, right? She glitches on the camera when you're moving around and you're shooting and you're meleeing, but if you're walking and standing still, there's no lines. That's purely a visual thing. That is purely a visual thing. So Nook is really, 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 really good right now, and I think she's going to be one of the best entry fraggers on attack for a while to come. But with that out of the way, that is it for today's video. My name's Alka, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.